50%.
Roll call, ma'am.
Schaefer. Heath.
Yes.
Bunting.
Yes.
Bannon.
Yes.
Irwin. Ingalls.
Yes.
Slagle.
Yep.
You've been provided an agenda.
Oh, move it.
Thank you, Mr. Bunting, second Mr. Fannin, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Both same sign, minutes from the last time were provided.
I pointed out a couple of typographical, I guess, for, other than that, looks good to me.
So there'll be a motion from Carolyn, second by Marty. All those in favor, saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign.
I don't see Adam here, so,
No.
I guess we can move to the next
I think
topic,
we-
and then as
Yeah,
he
so then we
gets
can
here,
try.
he can
Should
wait
be
for
around
it.
till she's late.
So, I know that, he's looking to ask for an additional tax abatement for Sealy.
Oh, sure.
So we'll go ahead and move on, and I think you guys have copies of the draft, and Diane's gonna go over that with you, or at least begin that process.
This is pretty much the first rough draft. It's been back out to all the departments, so they've seen what is going to be in it, so that they could respond and tell me if they wanted something to change, or if they wanted to add something. So that part is done. The departments don't really have any, I mean, they can't change anything now.
Right.
Well, I mean, they could change writing, but obviously nothing else is going to change. I put the reader's guide on the top, which is really, I mean, for all of us to understand what this is gonna look like, and, I thought, that was easy to follow. Obviously, there is gonna be a table of contents, all of those things that you see, that's stuff that's gonna be in there. I just took a webinar not very long ago about presenting your budget to the public, and this is kind of the new, this is really, I mean, the way that people are going.
Right.
So I found out lots of things and about the things that have to be in there, that you need to show. So, these things that you'll see are the things that we have to have in there, that we know we have to have. Other than that, I've got a lot of information from our audit, from our auditors. When I was looking at policies and the way that we do things, the way the funds are, this is all pretty new to me.
No, it's all right.
I found out tons of information from them. And those pieces are not, you're not seeing, but those will be things at the beginning that'll talk about the way that we do accounting, the way that we do things in accounting, the way we do things with the funds and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So those are other things that you'll see later. I'm trying to think of anything else. Otherwise, what you see here, I mean, this is pretty much how the format is for all the departments and all the funds. Any funds that belong to someone, if there's a department head or department official, elected official who is actually oversees that fund, then that would fall under their department, and it would be a part of that narrative with it. So instead of seeing things all separated, seeing departments and then funds, or levied funds and then special revenue funds, it'll be, the funds will fall underneath the departments that they're with. And then I kind of separated things into, if they have a levy, then they're pretty much together, and then there would be special revenue funds that maybe don't fall under a certain department head. So then they would come later. And still some of those we're working on.
So is there going to be, and we just got this, so I mean, it could be in here somewhere, but I was kind of looking at, for example, animal control. And there, I don't see like a list of how many dogs were registered, how many, you know, that kind of thing, like how many were picked up, how many were euthanized, how many were adopted out. Is that gonna be coming still, or is this not gonna, is that not gonna be included in this?
Well, I'm gonna say no, it's probably not going to be included, because these things were sent to departments to fill out. And we can guide them, and we can tell them, and they can ask us questions, but if they didn't provide it, Now, if that's something we would like to see, that's,
It's on my notes to ask for that. There's a couple of things that we have notes set aside to ask the department head about including. You'll notice throughout that there are some that didn't do a mission, that didn't,
Are
they
the
didn't give
posted
you the
notes yours, or
goals.
who are the posted?
mine.
Yeah, yeah. And, or they may not have done goals, they may not have given you highlights, they may not have done those things. So the first thing that we're going to be adding to each header roll, header line is what we decided. So where it says county board, it will say, that's probably not a good example, information technology respectfully submitted by John Sear. X. So you know who did this narrative, even though Diane helped with a lot of it in inputting in all the personnel items. Ginger helped with all the, they submitted their budget, but Diane categorized them and put them in the chart within. She did all the formatting, she did the organizational chart, but as far as the verbiage, the department head is responsible for the verbiage. And so if a department head chooses not to submit something, it's gonna say, nothing submitted,
No information
no
provided.
information provided,
By-
something like that. And so then you know who chose not to participate in that particular topic.
The technique of public shaming to try and influence behavior, is that?
Well, I guess I don't know, I mean, I don't, it doesn't, I've seen it done.
I'm not
and-
saying that critically, obviously it's the.
You just can't provide what
the
you don't
desire.
Right, and that's what I'm saying, we could give them as
You're
much
trying-
coaching as
You're trying to
possible.
encourage them to do it, and if they're not,
Right.
say,
But
there's a
it's
price
To
to
get back
that.
to that level of granularity, I mean, number of dogs, whatever, captured. Do then we get number of marriage licenses issued?
Well, if you notice, some department heads were much more detailed than others. So if
Yeah.
you look at Melinda Hillman's submission, she gave you way more information than we had ever
Or somebody
asked for. And
But that's
so
in their annual report.
that, it's in their annual report, and we have said that we are trying to tie things together. So even though they may not have it in there this year, maybe they'll get to see the full effect and maybe decide to add things for next year. But it's really what the department had felt like they wanted to provide for their department.
And I think one way to sell it is to say that there are certain things that the public tends to be interested in. And this could head off a FOIA request. You know, if the basic information is in there, maybe that's all people need and it'll be available online, correct? So, you know, that, I
Yeah.
think,
And
anticipate what they want to know a little bit.
I think the sheriff's department would be open to it just because they have the information, it would be easy for them to do. We, just haven't had those conversations with them yet. It's really, Diane has spent countless hours trying to pull this together.
I believe it.
And, getting them all pulled together has been difficult, and some are coming in faster than others. So it takes some time to get through them and see what we have and what we don't have and what we'd like to have. And we said, I think from the very beginning, that we were going to get as much information in here as possible this year, but we didn't think that we would meet overall everything that we wanted to be in for the first year.
It is the first year.
But we were gonna do our best.
You know, quick question. Carol mentions FOIA requests. and If this is online, and the information's there, if we get a FOIA request, pointing them to that, does that satisfy the
Yes, it
request? Okay.
But if there's some things that they wanna dig deeper into, then,
You can ask them, you just have to
I'm
have
just
the
saying,
document.
you know,
but this will be
some FOIA
available
requests are what I
online.
consider
Yes.
legitimate.
Is
People
it
really
currently
wanna know.
already, or is it
No.
some
Some
are
are
asked?
nuisance based.
No,
You're right.
we,
Mike, you know
there's,
that.
there's much more to come in here. I know this seems like a lot, you probably will end up with twice as many sheets.
Yes.
That's fine.
So
So,
it'll be digital, so.
and many of them are in progress already, we're just not comfortable giving them to you yet.
Your goals?
Is that fair?
Yeah, the summaries that'll have all the funds, those are a little harder to pull all together.
Yeah.
So that's been,
And what we've been talking about doing, and whether or not we do it for this year, or we do it after the budget's approved, but is doing a budget and brief.
Next year.
We'll there will be summaries in here, and there'll be a lot more information. Like, things that we plan to include towards the front have to do with, some of the tax structure and how the county taxes are collected. What makes up the county EAV and how that's spread amongst farm ground, residential, these types of things, and industrial, so the public's gonna have that as part of it.
It's pretty remarkable.
And then.
No, I mean, honestly.
And graphs, yep, we'll have them, and the school
Like-
district, what portion of your taxes, but you'll be looking at overall, I've given that to you before, you'll be looking at the overall average tax rate if all things were created equal. This is what your tax bill is made off of, and those disclaimers will be put in there. But I think it'll give the public, that's one of our goals, is to, better inform the public on the tax structure within the county, and so that's our way of achieving that goal.
I'd say so.
You do.
Oh,
To no public service.
yes, ma'am.
The other thing is, the, the way that our budget was before, with the sheets, you know, which all the departments are using, it'll be a supplement, to the budget. So that will be available for the public if anybody wants to see it, but also to be available for the departments because that's what they use, and that's what we use.
We still wanna continue the process, we don't wanna keep going.
No,
It'd be too difficult for us to continue to go back and forth. We need to get to the point where we're presenting the information and the information is provided to the appropriate number of, the appropriate committees, and the decisions are being made, and then they're implemented into the things. So what we're saying is, we are gonna have that information available. It's just how we work through those. I think we wanna continue to do them in the type of method that we did. If that makes any sense.
No,
So for purposes of the statutory requirements to stay within the levy, will this be the official document, or will the old,
No, that will be the official document.
this one, this'll just
No.
be, will this be an appendix to it?
Yeah,
it's
if
going to be a
notice-
supplement, not an appendix.
It says
We
it
can do
right
it
on
either
here.
way, but it's going to be a supplement
Yeah, it's a
instead.
supplement.
In other words, not
It says it
not
right here.
necessarily.
It says it right on the bottom.
Okay, I have that.
Yeah, that's
I mean, on the reader's guide, it says on the bottom that it will be available in the county board office, or, you know, calling the finance department, and available online.
So we don't
I-
plan on printing that, we don't plan on posting it online.
It's
just-
available to request, okay.
Well,
No, I said I would post it online.
yeah, she says she
And-
can post it online.
Okay,
They-
then I guess we're gonna post it online.
The auditor said it.
They
I
want it
asked
online.
them.
okay, cool.
I asked them both ways. Should we do an appendix, should we do a supplement? I mean, she liked the supplement idea better because then it's not making your budget even longer,
Even bigger.
adding this more, you know, this massive detail at the end. So she just said, be sure to reference somewhere in the official budget that is available.
Do we have a way of tracking how many hit that, John? Would we have a way of tracking how many people hit the supplement to kind of see?
I should be able to, like how we can see.
We're statutorily required to have it online now, aren't we?
Yeah,
We
but
have a
not
website?
necessarily the supplement,
No, but the
budget,
is.
yes.
And
It has to be posted within so many days of approval.
there's a table of contents listed, so
There will be,
page numbers.
yes, there will be.
Awesome.
This is awesome.
Okay, and thanks for.
It's a good start.
And thanks for using the auditors, I think they're a good resource and being probably underutilized. I realize it's not free when you call them, but they can help us head off trouble.
Let the record show that is in a minority.
Yeah, she's been really, really helpful.
Good, which one do you talk?
I talked to Erica,
Good, she's the one in charge of it.
so,
Good,
she's just been
That's great.
very helpful.
good for you, Diane.
Now we just need to make sure the numbers.
We already verified everything that we gave you, so.
Yeah, Miss
Every
Carolyn looked at
single.
it.
We have. Finally decided everything. So I do have some questions about the levy we talked about, so anyway.
So what's the timeline now then?
Okay, so, it's gonna take us some more time. I'm really, needing the next couple weeks, we are needing the next couple weeks to pull the rest of the information together. Nothing should be a surprise to you. Nothing that's in here should be a surprise to you. They're everything based on the decisions that you've already made. So, we will have everything pulled together in submission form by your next meeting. Now, I know that means that you have not had any time to review them, and we can shoot for before, but keep in mind that, again, nothing should be a surprise, and what you are doing is you are putting it on display, and it will be put on display for a month.
Our October meeting will put on display approving of it.
What happens if we wanna change it in November?
There could be minor changes. I mean, if something happens, in the meantime, we will go through it with a fine tooth comb. We'll go through this multiple times, and Diane will hate me by the time the thing is all said and done.
She does now.
We will. Yeah, no, we will.
Don't worry about that.
Anyway,
Would there be any
But
benefit
if-
to doing a dress rehearsal the 26th, that's 3 weeks from now?
I would love to say that would be okay, Tim, and if you guys wanna give me the ability to possibly do that, I don't wanna tell you that I need time to do my part too.
Oh, no, I know.
And I'll have like a couple weeks. We did say that we were gonna shoot to have it out to you that week before. I just don't wanna promise it to you, because we really wanted to have everything to you today too.
Okay.
And then a couple weeks ago, I think we realized, nope, that's not gonna happen.
Alright.
So when you say, so you're shooting for a week before the committee meeting?
And that is our goal. Yep.
Okay. I mean, I'd be willing to come by and pick up a copy, you know, not have a meeting, but just everybody come and get their copy or look at it digitally. If you can do that, I can't, I have to look at,
No,
I
that's
just
alright.
like the paper, but.
If we have it available, we will let you know that we have
Alright,
it
fair
available.
enough.
Is that
Okay.
okay?
If changes, after it's put on display, if there are minor changes, does that require another meeting?
No, you can make minor changes, and remember, when we talked last month, we've asked you guys to really make your decisions last month, or in the month of August. So, as we're going through this, because we're making changes to so many other areas, it really is difficult for us to make changes to the document. And I think that I know some of the areas that you're thinking about change, because I heard those comments at admin and things. And those changes can be made without physical changes to the budget, if that's what you're referring to.
No, I just, based on John's comment, you know, if
Cause we
there's
have,
a change made,
Yeah. I would hope that you've asked questions to each of your department heads, and that you already know really the crux of the content that's there. Again, there shouldn't be anything that's in here. It's a lot of information, but it shouldn't be anything that's a surprise to you.
I did hand out, a little handout that I was working on this afternoon on the chicken scratching. I gave Marty the last one, but if you look at the side with the chicken scratching on it, flip it over. Oh, you didn't get
I don't
it.
have any chicken
You don't have
scratch.
any chicken scratching. Who's got the chicken scratching?
Oh, here.
Thanks. I should have made more copies, but, I was looking at, you know, I was contemplating that we had set ourselves goals a couple of years ago of keeping the levy the same and getting the taxes down, at least relative to other counties, because we were too high. And so we worked really hard the last 3 months, and the staff members have worked even harder to try to make that happen. And I think when you look at this, there's some reason to celebrate, but there's also some some areas that I thought were a surprise to me. Like, I thought we were keeping the levy the same, but as you can see, if you look under the levy, and just for, you know, new people, the levy is the actual amount of money that we pull from taxpayers. And then the rate is the, if I'm saying anything wrong, let me know, this is what I've tried to understand.
It's the rate, we were trying to keep the rate the same.
Well, I was trying to keep the levy the same and having the rate go down. I want the rate to go down. And, what you see here is that the levy has crept up. It certainly crept up earlier, when you go back to the 2012, 2013, you know, if you go back that far, in 6 years, it's gone up $250,000. It's gone up 12% in the last 6 years. Now, we kind of set these goals 3 years, 2.5, 3 years ago, and we're doing pretty well there. It's only crept up from 6.73 to 7.08. But now this year, the number that was thrown out last month that I thought we were talking about keeping the levy the same, but that's definitely not the same levy when you're up in the, did we say 2.875 for just the general fund. Because the general fund.
Can I explain some of this?
Sure.
Okay, so, first of all, and I appreciate what you did, but when you look at the overall county levy, even though it's separated on these two sheets, mental health is included in the overall county levy. And the reason why you see that increase is because you're not taking into account the decreases that happen with mental health. So if you look actually at what those are combined, so let's just take 13-14 to 14-15. The actual difference there is 0.1% difference, 0.1. And we're always gonna have a little bit of fluctuation because we don't have those EAVs pinned down. We'll try our best to keep as close to them as possible, and we came under 1%. So each of these years, we came in under 1% change because we've always said that we were keeping the rate the same. That's the direction, and I understand if you have a different goal, but the goal that was established by the board was to keep the rate the same or to reduce it. Now, the reason why the general fund would be going up while other levies have been going down is because prior to this, and I did an analysis on this years ago, and I showed the board, where other levies had been taking the max. Give me the max, 5%, 5%, 5%, and each time under PTEL, when we were limited, what happened was the general fund is the one that took the hit. And then it was the general fund that ended up $1.7 million in deficit. And so you wanted to balance that out. And so we said, it can't just be the general fund that makes all these changes. It has to be county-wide, because for so long, it's only been the one unit. And so it should be all of them. And so that's how that's changed. So really, when you look at this, you've got to look at the combination, the county levies combined with mental health. And so when you look at those, you will see minimal increases in the actual rate. Very minimal.
Is that even on this? This is from, by the way, this is from our last year's
Yep.
budget.
Can I just ask where you got these numbers for?
Yeah, you've got it was it's John's error in the,
Okay,
in the
because
budget
I'm like,
from
that's
last
not
year.
right.
So this number
Okay, so
for
these
mental
are-
health here, this is not even right. Their number
Yeah,
should be
the
like
rates are-
1.19 or something like that. The tax
even
rate
look.
should be like 1.19 for 2017.
Yes,
I think,
and it is,
something
I mean,
like that.
I'm looking right at it
So
on
we
mine.
had a decrease.
It is.
I didn't look at the mental health
Yeah.
part, I was looking, we only control, right, we only control.
No, you
budget.
control mental health as well. You establish their levy.
Yeah.
I know that there are some
Okay.
people that have different opinions of that, but 100%, it's their job to tell you the programs that they're wanting to provide, and it's your job to determine how much a levy they need in order to provide those. And in all actuality, you could have decreased their levy over the years, and you haven't done that.
Yeah, and that's kind of like where I like to get drilled down a little bit and not look at it all mashed together, or I shouldn't say mashed, but all combined. All combined is important, but also if you're looking to make cuts, you wanna look at the individual things, like where can you actually get lower and keep it lower and not have the difference sort of go into another fund.
To be
You know what I'm
honest,
saying?
I think, and we've had this conversation before, I think countywide, where you are, you know, you may have some opportunities in VAC because we've got some fluctuation of where it's kind of like a roller coaster, where we're levying at a certain rate and then we decrease it real low because they don't need it and then we've raised it back up. I think where we're asking for this year is an okay level to keep them at, maybe a slightly higher, but, if you're looking at where can we leave things across the board, then you're there for mental health. You're not gonna be able, but they have a fund balance, so
They
you
have a big
could,
fund
you
balance, so we
could decrease them, but here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna have a decline in your rate for 1 year, and then it's gonna go right back up.
Go back up, yeah, I get that.
And I can tell you that how that affects the taxpayer, it's not gonna be enough of a change in the taxpayer's bill in order to see the benefit that you're looking for. But overall, the other county levies, highway, all the highway funds, really, they need every single dime that they can get, every single cent. Public health is there as well. If you're gonna continue to provide those social services, and it's the taxpayers of this county that voted and said that they want to have this, that's why it's there.
You mean back in the 60s?
Yes.
Right. Right, which is what, a big chunk of that is the reason why we're above other counties, when you look at our
That's exactly right,
financial
I showed
report
you that,
card.
yep.
Yes, and I remember that. I guess what I would like taxpayers to just know is that we are working really hard to hold these things in line, because if you think about it, it's amazing that we're able to do it, given that there has been some inflation, not a huge amount, but there's been some inflation, there's been increases in contract amounts that have to be paid, and yet we're still have been able to keep the rate at 1.01 for the last 3 go-rounds. Now, for the taxpayers, they have to understand that if your assessment has been increased, you are gonna be paying more, even if the rate is the same. So you might be writing a bigger check, even when the rate stays the same, depending on what the assessors do. However, the other thing that occurred to me is that, with the income from the prisoners, shouldn't we be able to be actually decreasing?
Well, you have been, and if you look at this
Like a
sheet
lot.
right here, I mean, really you have. But you gotta remember too that your expenses are going up. But if you look at, in the budget documents that we gave you, and you just look at this general fund balance summary, you can see that our expenses for, make sure that we're looking at the same one, no page numbers, it's the one that looks like this. Okay?
How many pages in are you?
Not very many.
I'll count
5,
'em. 1,
6.
2, 3. On the back of 3, Linda.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Page 6.
Okay, so there's a couple of things to look at from this. So the thing that's most glaring is for 2019, the amount that you're transferring in from the Pontiac Coast Agreement, the Pontiac Coast Supplement, is $586,000. You compare that to 2007 or 16, when we transferred in 1,789,931. That is a big accomplishment on bringing that number down. Not only that, revenues are finally trending up, though that's solely based on the income from,
Right.
I don't think we have anything that's trended up to a point where it's significant,
Other than
other than the housing.
the housing.
That's
Yeah,
it.
The landfill's about the same.
Yeah, and then look at the expenses. You're going from, you've got, I mean, when you look at where we are for expenditures projected for 2019 versus 2016, if you take that, we're gonna be under the cost of inflation. And the reason for that is because some of the programs that you've offered, such as the early retirement incentive, and how you've tried to restructure some of the things you've done. I mean, you've made really, really big accomplishments. And those are things that we will be highlighting in the beginning of the budget.
Yep. No, it is something that I think some people thought could not be done. Why did the chicken cross the road?
I don't care, why did the chicken
Get away from Colonel Sanders, that's
So
easy.
now, to show the squirrels it can be done. We are the chicken.
I thought it was the rooster.
Oh, I think that's quotable tomorrow, I think that's quotable.
I hope you read that. So then, maybe this isn't time and place, but the,
Paul, you've
so I
got
don't wanna
that.
open a discussion about it, but, when we voted on this, I was
They can send it in for
completely
a
different
prize.
page than
The leaders, if they have the answer.
sheriff in school. One of the things being just the attrition versus not attrition. Where does that discussion take place, or is that a done deal, or?
Okay,
Is it-
well, one, I would like, let me say a couple of things to that. One, when you guys are ready to have that discussion, I assume, like, next meeting would be fine, but I would like the sheriff to be here when we have the discussion, okay? So if possible, let's save it for next month. But the one thing that I will say is that your decision on that does not affect these budget numbers, and there's a reason why. The reason why is because the 2 officers that you approved at last month's meeting, those salaries got put into his budget. So he has those 2 people approved. The other 2 salaries are in the miscellaneous attrition slated line item. So if you told him that he was allowed to hire no one, then he simply wouldn't have access to use those salaries that you have control over. They're not within his budget. If you decided that you were gonna give him 1 new officer, one of the other officers would move and the expenses would be taken from his budget, and the other one, we would just have that excess left in there for next year.
Okay.
That's what would happen.
Okay, fair
Well
enough.
explained, thank you.
I did call the city of Pontiac about the resource officer situation, and the Pontiac Township High School hasn't had a resource officer for about 5 years. They were in talks and they were close to agreement with the police department to have a resource officer start this year. I haven't checked back to see if that got all finalized, but they were on the verge of finalizing it, and the amount of money that the city was gonna pay, was gonna have the school pay, was $72,000, which is 100% of the cost of that officer fully encumbered. And I was also told that it's believed, there's like studies or something, and it's considered good practice to have younger officers be the resource officers. And that also would help avoid sort of people staying officers for longer than they otherwise would have in their career. So I think that the schools should have to pay 100% of the encumbered cost, so that there isn't double taxation of any county taxpayers. It's my opinion.
Which we should discuss in details today when the sheriff.
When the sheriff is present. But I thought it was kind of encouraging to see that the numbers that the sheriff ultimately came up with, which was $75,000 each, very close to what the city of Pontiac's numbers were.
Yeah.
It's just that you have to actually build it now.
Yeah. And I don't know what the city of Pontiac has planned for the officer during the summer, but I know that, the sheriff has other plans for those officers during the summer when we have a little bit more volume here, so.
Well, traditionally, because I was there, and it was part of the FOP contract, vacations and that sort of thing, those officers were mandated to take their vacation or personal days as much as they could during those summer months, and then they were used to cover other officers' vacation time, traditionally during the summer. Because that was always what about these 3 months? So they're not trying to find something else for them to do.
Right, and that's assuming that you go to the local police agencies to hire these people, they're security people. You ever considered the option of hiring a security service?
We were never
Why,
given those numbers.
it's just a presumption that you hire a local policeman. Well, there's other people in that line of work. So, whatever. There's somebody from Blackwater, right?
We'll go for it.
Mrs. DeVos, huh? Well, maybe she'd do it as a charity. I tell her brother to give us a break. It's for the school, she's Secretary of Education, Union. They cut those guys down there, and just kind of break, would you?
There's a big conference going on in Illinois, is it today or tomorrow? It's sometime soon to have a big
Bless you.
discussion of school security and what can be done. So hopefully they'll come up with some good ideas.
And one advantage of living in this county is we have the mental health department, so hopefully that's paying off socially across the county over the years and reducing the number anyway.
I wouldn't count on it.
If it ain't, then we gotta rethink.
Do we need to have any
You
action
have a
on
fraction
this deal?
culture that can
No,
change the
not
fraction.
unless you guys have some other direction from us that we're not,
So if the rents are low, that's, sorry.
I'm assuming that the one question that
It's just the way it is.
that others had about possible changes was addressed during that conversation. And that we're okay with, pretty much what we have talked about so far.
In years past, there has not been, after we've put it on display after the October meeting, there has not been too many changes made
No,
to the.
no, the only changes that
I
have
couldn't
really been
think of
made,
anything that was maybe a carryover that didn't get used up,
Or-
but that was even.
in the last couple of years, there have been errors that were replaced. We're hoping not, for that not to happen. It can happen, but generally speaking, we look not to make changes.
Since the historic 99 meeting, which was my first final one, where we just cut them right on the spot.
Oh, I heard that, the infamous.
Just cut them right on the spot.
What do you mean?
Cut the levies. Cut them at the final meeting, at the November meeting.
Oh,
Just cut them.
well, I think that the process has been working better too, thanks to you guys. Been getting to things earlier.
Don't bring it up as, that's the way to do things.
No, I'm saying, well, in the past, though, we had it down to the wire, there was a lot of changes made at the
That
last
was-
There
minute.
was.
Spatial meeting.
But that
And there
was,
were a lot of special meetings.
And we haven't had to do
That
that.
was wild.
Well, I think we've pushed for, decisions, and I hope the decisions, were still made the right way. For the right reasons, and not just because we were pushing to have decisions made, but I think, you know, having the goal be that they need to get through committee in July makes things a lot easier, regardless if the committee has to meet again, instead of them pushing off to September and then to October, and you're waiting for this decision to come. That's where we really are really holding out there, so. And, you know, really, we've gotta thank the department heads, because for the most part, I don't know about it, but for the most part, even, especially in the submissions early on, they did a great job submitting their budgets. Many of them really embraced the new, structure, and so that helped a lot. So we were lucky.
And the narrative, I mean, that took time.
It did take time for all of them, Diane more than anyone, and so I thank her for all her hard work on it.
Thanks.
And next year will be
I keep telling her.
much easier, right? So,
What'd you think,
Say
Bill?
next on what?
What do you think, Bill, since you're here?
For the new process. It wasn't too difficult, even though narratives probably aren't our specialty.
I'll bet in your case though, no, I always think you, I mean this, you do a good job of explaining things, I think that would be really helpful. I mean that.
Appreciate that, thank you.
It's a very
Well,
complex thing.
for me, I think it helps us to explain to the public, or the public having access to it, to understand that this is a big, complex
It's a
operation.
sophisticated business.
And even though we just meet once a month, I mean, there's a lot that goes on day in and day out.
Well, I'm thankful we're not responsible for its operation.
That's right.
I'm sure the citizens are as well.
The word transparency was thrown around a lot last month at the board meeting. I think this is
Oh, yeah.
The definition of transparency.
We
If they choose to go find it.
Usually, when politicians are using that word, it means they're heading in exactly the opposite direction. Public, yes, that's what you want, I'm giving you what you want to hear.
I did want to ask about P-TEL, because in the minutes, it was recorded in the minutes too, and it was mentioned last time about, do we have any concerns about P-TEL? Being triggered and
Yeah.
changing our revenue?
Yes, I mean, we discussed that, and so we had you guys determine what number you wanted to go at. No matter what, we will have a decrease in the rate for next year. It will be minimal. But unless there is a gross miscalculation from downstairs, and I would like to say that I trust Shelley in those estimates, I'm confident that she's doing a good job and she's provided the best numbers to her ability as of this snapshot, and that's all she can do. But based off of the information that we've been given, we should see a decrease in the rate, no matter what. We will be limited under P-TEL, we've stuck it in one fund, so it will be the general fund that gets reduced. That doesn't mean that that it's necessarily gonna take a hit, because we're over where we wanted to be. And in all actuality, based off the goal that you established for yourself, and I got this number and I deleted it, but you said that, you wanted to hit 1.466, 1,466,000, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you came in at 1,425,156. So even if that happens, you're still gonna meet your goal.
But the number she still gave us was a fairly conservative number.
She said it was a conservative
I
number,
remember
yes.
that,
Yep. Yeah.
We do have some
even
assets
though it
that
was
are
quite a bit
losing.
higher, it was still conservative compared to.
Yeah, and I can tell you that the reason for the increase, and Jason can attest to this too, but it's really in the farm ground. And the reason why you're not able to absorb that into P-TEL is because that's not new construction, that's not considered new value. So you're not able to get a lot of that. P-TEL is simply CPI plus new construction. Farm ground does not count towards that. And so that's why, even though farm ground, values, their EAV is going up, there's the potential for their overall rate. I wouldn't say it's probably gonna go down, that's not likely. But others could see a decrease because, they're limited under P-TEL. There are several that are not subject to P-TEL though in the county, like schools that cross over Tri-Point, they would not be subject to P-TEL, Woodland would not be subject to P-TEL.
Oh, when they cross county lines?
Yeah, if you cross two county lines, you're not subject to P-TEL.
If one of the counties hasn't.
Yes, correct.
Is there any school that doesn't cross the county line in Louisiana?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Tanya?
Pontiac, Flanagan,
Odell.
Fremont,
Odell.
Odell.
Flanagan might,
I don't think so.
they wouldn't get into that Woodford County there on the.
Not that I'm aware of.
Chrissy's our extension expert, she could just sit here and rattle them off to you, all one right after another, which one's in, which one's out, but.
And
She has answered.
wind energy, that assessment goes down every year.
That assessment goes down, it doesn't go down as much as you think that it would go down. I actually, had those numbers pulled for Dwight, just to see how that, formula has an effect. Because there is an overall formula, it's not just straight depreciation, but there's the
inflation factor.
Yeah, they
plus
go up at some point.
coefficient and something like that. They won't ever go up, but they'll level out. I think it's at year 13, they level out and they don't depreciate any further.
Right, I thought there was a certain point where they don't depreciate any further.
Right,
But they
around
do
year
go up.
13. I don't know that they'll go
CPI or
up.
something.
I don't know. It's always gonna be based off that formula, but it's never going to go below a certain point.
Is that assessment law sunsetted still, or did that get made permanent?
I think they extended that, and I don't know, I know it's been extended, whether or not it got extended and it has a new sunset date, or if it's permanent, I don't know the answer to that, Carolyn.
And I think they're working on solar too.
They did
Trying
that,
to do something with solar.
that's done.
It is, okay.
Mhm.
And in most of the,
Is that figured in there, or we don't?
It's a similar type formula for depreciation, it's a lesser amount per megawatt for solar than it is, I think it's, and you're really testing my memory, I think it's 350,000 for solar, I think it's 218, or vice versa. For wind, 350,000 for wind per megawatt, 218,000.
238, I thought, is it 238 or 218?
I thought it was 218 for solar, but it's one of those numbers, it's lower. Which is weird, because it takes up more ground.
Yeah, and it makes the same, I mean, if it's, depends on how much energy it makes, I guess, it's the rated,
Well, that's what it's
Well,
rated.
it's based off more megawatts, so.
Megawatt.
the megawatts, but then there's the actual, it's not just the capacity, it's the actual efficiency.
I think a megawatt on solar farms is it's 6 to 7 acres, I think, if they figure out a megawatt for a solar farm.
And so, we don't have any, do we have any solar that is being taxed now?
No.
Okay. All right.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay.
Diane, why don't we go on to you? Finance
You have one of these.
Everyone got the report?
I'll make a copy for you at the end of the meeting.
I don't have any, does anyone have any questions?
Just our 80 and 90% people, how we gonna work that out?
I don't know how we're gonna work that out now.
You say what?
I don't know how we're gonna work that out right now.
Because it appears the next time we meet, they'll probably be at 100 or better.
Yeah, I know that.
Mr. Watson did send us a letter, and I meant to copy it for you, and we were just kind of scrambling at the last minute, so I forgot to scan it in and send it to you. But basically, he's just putting you on notice that he's gonna go over in his autopsy line. So, we have him, and then, the
Jail's at
jail
92.
overtime. That's the overtime that we talked about. So we kind of seen that was happening a while ago.
The sheriff is actually, the sheriff's department itself will make it.
Okay,
They've got some things to be subtracted out.
okay.
But what about the jail?
They are not going to make it.
They're gonna need a transfer from contingency for overtime. They're, let me see if I can say this correctly. The transport revenue that they receive should offset what their expenditure is in overtime. However, it's not how that works in accounting, so they're gonna need a contingency transfer in order to cover that. And I think when we went through that graph, I could show you exactly how that was working out.
The reality is we'll be reimbursed for most of that.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Okay, cool. Well, good.
especially now that we got the increase.
Right, okay, cool.
and didn't, last year wasn't that discussion about whether we were gonna do it as a contingency? Was that for this?
Yep.
So it's all sort of, who used it?
It's in there, but I don't think we anticipated this level.
It's more than the contingency,
Yeah. So what we'll be doing towards the end of the year is looking for other areas where we're under budget that we can pull from, and then we'll put that in the line item. We're gonna have to do that, we have no other choice. And any additional, hopefully, nobody has any emergencies, especially expensive ones, because, yeah.
And the, yeah, you had a question about public defender?
Yeah.
That's from the payout to the
Okay.
former public
So
defender.
there will not be another payout that's gonna.
Oh, no, that's from his retirement.
Gotcha.
There's still some fat in the budget of, circuit clerk, or the, I'm sorry, for the public defender contract.
I think, those things are being worked out behind the scenes, Carolyn. I think, we didn't see anything in this year's budget, but it is something that's being discussed.
75.56, just look at the big number at the bottom.
I know, I tried that last time, this time, I just, I wasn't feeling quite as optimistic. I'm sorry. On Friday, I looked and I thought, oh, and then I thought, no, I don't know, listen, pennies.
And I guess we'll, does anybody here from the sheriff's committee, do they know what's going on with the autopsies? Is it just?
I think it's in that letter, and if you look in here, I think even in his budget response, you'll see in there, he's got some information about this within the budget narrative that he submitted to you. But I will scan in that letter, I'm sorry, I meant to bring it for you today, but there's some stuff in there too.
Is it the opioids, or is it just a strange spike, just a fluky spike? Or is it?
I thought he said it was homeless people and indigent that had not been to under a doctor's care, more so than the opioids.
And a lot of senior citizens, he said, that
Yeah.
don't have a
Yeah.
doctor.
They didn't have health care.
Yeah.
And I think August was a strange spike.
Yeah,
I mean, just the month of August itself put him in a different spot than he was a month ago. I mean, as far as where his expenses were. And like I said, to me, August was a strange spike.
And he did explain how I think he's doing a really good job chasing down doctors, trying to get medical reasons for death, so we don't have to do autopsy. So I think he's doing all he can.
I think he said the trend was 1 per month in prior years, and he's at 1.3 now.
I had down that,
It was 14.6% from August to
Yeah.
July. 14.6.
That's crazy.
didn't he say 33 a month? Yeah, 33 a month deaths, he said. It's a lot of elderly people, only 8 drug deaths, and 30 autopsies so far this year, and that's up.
Good note.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Linda. Maybe Barb has something to
I was gonna, well, that's all right. Good. Barb?
Yes, revenue is pretty consistent. State has been coming through with funding on a regular basis. Income tax was down a little bit this month. I don't have an explanation why, but otherwise, we're doing pretty good on the revenue.
We got 2 more finance committee meetings, 3 more?
Well, it depends on if I come, yeah.
What?
I mean, are you guys gonna miss me if I don't show
Yes,
up? Okay,
yes.
well then I guess I'll come.
Good. Yeah, no, you're always good to have. All right, Adam, what you got?
Good evening. Your
Indulgence? Yeah, sure.
accommodation here with the schedule on the agenda. So I have a request for Sea Lake property tax abatement. Sea Lake is going to add approximately 15,800 square feet to their building. And they employ 136 persons. And the capital improvement will be about $4,900,000. We have a property tax abatement incentive matrix that 19 taxing jurisdictions around the county have signed a memorandum of understanding, party to, and based on the metrics that I outlined with respect to staffing, capital investment, square footage added, this would be a 5-year property tax abatement applicable specifically and only to the new improvements, not a reduction to the existing revenue that any taxing jurisdiction receives from the structure built many years ago. The requirement for the 5-year abatement on building expansion is 6,250 feet, so they far exceed that. Capital investment, 750,000, they far exceed that. And they far exceed the employment requirement of employment retention expansion of 40 jobs. They do have wages in excess of $29,201 between the wage and benefits. So they would meet all of those standards, and they would make those representations and warranties in the abatement document itself. I've talked to Paula Crane, superintendent at Prairie Central Schools, and I'll be seeing them later this month. They've been supportive of the property tax abatements that follow the terms of the matrices. They were a party to that, I believe, in 2015 when it was adopted, and they've had initial conversations with the Village of Forest, and they'll be a party to this as well. So the abating jurisdictions will be the Village of Forest, the County of Livingston, and Prairie Central School District. That's the summary
Good job.
overview.
Thank you.
Take any questions that anybody
I have a question. I have several questions.
has.
Is this what is the percentage of abatement for that 5-year term?
100% for the 5 years.
All 5 years?
Correct.
How-
Once there's a certificate of occupancy issued.
How is this going to play in, they already have a 10-year abatement?
We do,
Yes.
but as I mentioned in my presentation, that
Just
this
on the new stuff.
abatement is applicable to the new square footage being added.
Okay, I understand that, but,
So it doesn't apply is the answer to
okay.
the square footage for which there's a 10-year abatement in place.
How far into that 10-year term are we right now? I haven't.
Only 1 and part of a year. This year, their total abatement of a $27,000 tax bill, $20,900 was abated. They paid $6,200.
And this would be a 5-year for this 15,800 square foot building? Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, go ahead. I don't want to interrupt your train
No.
of thought. I'll try to remember mine.
No, so this is only gonna be a 5-year abatement for the 15,800 square foot addition they're looking to put into the building?
Correct.
Okay.
Now, Barbara, let's go back to the point that you just raised. That tax bill, you mentioned, had a total tax of approximately $27,000, of which approximately 20 was abated. Okay, that is only for 25,000 square feet of the structure out there. There's another tax bill, right,
Right.
for the existing structure, that is how much?
I don't know if I brought that one. This is just my abatement folder.
The
so
point I
didn't
wanted
print
to
it.
make for the board is that
There's no
we're
improvement,
receiving,
but there's no improvement, you're not getting any more taxes anyway.
well, right, and the county's existing revenue stream
There's not been an impact.
has not been impacted at all. So there's another tax bill that's probably significantly more than $27,000 for the couple 100,000 square feet that are out there that they're paying in full.
I'm sorry, just to clarify that, so.
Sure.
So this abatement is for the 15,800 for 5 years.
Right.
The existing 10-year abatement, of which 9 is left, is for approximately 25,000 square feet.
That is accurate.
And they're paying 100%, the usual going rate for how many square feet?
200,000.
200, is that right?
We'll get you accurate numbers here in a moment.
Okay.
So far,
This is the parcel that was abated. Yeah.
of the 20,900 that was abated, what portion of that was the county?
What was the county?
That's part of the abatement application.
I'm guessing that too, but I wanted just to make sure that this was actually.
Say that number?
$3,098.07.
How much?
$3,098.
And is that spread amongst,
I got the impression.
all of our different levies or just taken from the
Yes.
general?
No, it's
Okay,
flat,
starting
it's
from-
the corporate levy.
With the taxpayers.
But I may have heard that wrong.
This Prairie Central had the largest, that was $14,600.
Actually, the taxpayers do not make up this amount.
Well, I just mean they don't get it, they don't receive it. It
Okay,
doesn't
so
come
this-
into our coffers,
This is what happens.
that's why.
And and
But it
how
would
it's,
not- what you're gonna say is that it wouldn't have if they had.
no, that's not what I'm gonna say.
Okay, I'm sorry, that's what we always say.
Well, and that's true in some regard, okay, but here's the thing, and Adam and I have had this discussion before about the difference between abatements within enterprise zones and abatements
Right.
outside of enterprise zones that work under retail. So when you're a part of an enterprise zone, that amount is deducted from your EAV available. So in other words, if your EAV is 6 million and you add in a $20,000 parcel, it's still 6 million. So your taxes are spread amongst the 6 million that's remaining. That additional $200,000 improvement has no effect on what you're doing for your taxes and your levies. The difference when you are abating taxes and you are not a part of an enterprise zone is you had 6 million, now you have 620,000, and you're levying the amount that you were going to, maybe it's the same as it was last year. The only difference is you're actually receiving less because you're giving that. It's not like you're taking the money and then giving it back, but ultimately you're saying, no, you don't have to pay. Right. So you ultimately do receive less funds.
But other taxpayers don't have to pay more.
Correct.
So explain
But
to
you
me,
also don't get to reduce your rate.
in the interest of time, and I don't wanna take any more time on, but your EAV with the additional, with the tax abatement, that still goes on your EAV total number, does it not?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Alright,
Oh, with the tax abatement in the enterprise zone?
In the zone or out of the zone?
It's different. If you're in the enterprise zone, it is not included in your overall.
until
EAV.
after the abatement is.
Until after the abatement is done, and then you go on the tax rolls and it's counted as,
And if you're outside the enterprise zone, that EAV is added, that additional.
It's
Right.
inclusive.
is included.
Okay, alright, got it. Thought I heard it
So,
right.
so by abating that for 5 years, and it's something I thought we had already decided to do, but by abating it for 5 years, we're encouraging this company to make a big investment in their place of work, which after the abatement is off, the county then, after that 5 years, the county will receive
Right.
the full tax value of that property.
Right.
It's just a way to encourage businesses to stay in Livingston County,
That's not the argument, yeah.
and grow their business.
Mhm.
That helps the county.
The only argument was that, it doesn't have anything to do about whether or not you should do it or you should not do it. You already said you were going to do it. What you're saying is, it does have an impact, because when you levy your same amount, when you levy this amount, it will just be $3,098 difference over 5 years. So basically, you're giving that company back
But-
$15,000 is what
But,
you're doing.
but hopefully if they employ 50 people,
Hopefully they
those,
spend it.
some of those are gonna buy houses that maybe are not now. Some of these houses that we've got in the county that are,
Some sales tax.
Maybe they'll expand again.
I just wanted you to understand the difference. I wasn't saying that you should or you shouldn't do it, just how it
There's ancillary
impacts
benefits to this too.
the tax
and
rate.
it's
That's
economic
it.
growth.
But
One
they're
on one.
they're not hiring any more people though, are they?
Yes,
They are?
Eight.
Eight, oh.
Okay.
So that doesn't meet the criteria for hiring, they're meeting it on the other two.
But you only have to do 2 of the 3,
You only have to
correct?
have two of the
You only need 2 of the 3.
right.
Well,
But the fact is, Livingston County's looking at $3,000 a year, $15,000 total. The other taxing bodies, like the schools, that are contributing much more, are signing on as well.
But they have the right to say no at this point, right?
Sure.
they do.
Every time we have one of these, we have the
Absolutely, I
right to
guess my
sort of
point
say,
is,
hit the brakes, we're getting free.
it's our
time.
responsibility to think about the revenue stream for Livingston County. There's another board out there elected
They have to.
that has to justify that. And I guess the other point is, this meets all the criteria, Adam always refers to it as a matrix, that got a great deal of debate and discussion in this room and was approved. So, I make the motion that we,
I'll second.
No, wait a minute, now, I must, Mr. Bunning has already asked
Oh,
that he
oh.
make the motion, so.
oh, I'm sorry. I'll
Well,
second
said
it.
that, sir, yes.
Thank you.
I just wanted to fan it out.
I guess one thing I also think about though is, just to keep in mind, is that this, so the value of this property is, it's going to be based on fair market value, ideally. And if the company were to leave at the end of the 5 or the 10 years, and they can't sell it to anybody, then we're not gonna get the tax value of it, because its value is gonna go down.
We're gonna get whatever the market value is of the property established by the assessor at any time the assessor establishes the market value.
That it's not a going concern and it's gonna be,
Well, I would talk to
they're
the.
gonna
I
have
would
to
talk the
resell
ass-
it is the
I would-
point, just
I
like
would-
when you sell a house.
Vacant buildings don't go down as fast as you might think they would.
I would,
They're gonna have a huge,
Yeah, well,
Yes,
they've got a
sir.
huge investment
What'd you say?
in those buildings, putting
Adam,
them
you
up.
have something you wanna say or not, which is fine.
no, I would just say that's, I don't know that to be true, Carolyn. I think we should call in the assessor's opinion of property value and the rate at which they wane or the rate at which they increase based on whether they're a going concern.
well, if they sell it to somebody else who doesn't wanna pay as much for it as we think it's worth, then
Yeah, but that's the market value.
Right.
That's just the market.
okay.
The market establishes value, not us in this room.
To some extent. On industrial, square footage is,
Which direction are they going, Adam? Are they going east or with the bill, with the, do you have any idea?
Yes.
Northeast side,
They are
huge portion of that
going
building vacant
east
for several
and
years.
north.
And
Okay.
they were still the
When
same,
will it start construction?
virtually the same.
This fall.
Oh, they're gonna
But
start.
the landfills do get themselves reassessed when they close, then they
The
get reassessed.
company over it was Osaw Tool that sold and folded up and moved away. Is that provision, a similar provision in here too? The Seelig folds and moves
Pull it
away.
back.
They have to pay back?
Yes.
Okay.
But they've still got a, they still are operating out of there.
House across the street.
That
they
is not a
tore it
closed
down. A
building.
lot sold for,
Osaw is still operating it.
Well,
And I think what, and just to put things in perspective, the amount of the clawback in the case of Osaw is what?
it was like $600,
Okay.
because it was only the village of Culver.
But they do their bookkeeping and stuff still there.
Well, we got a motion and a second, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, sir, thanks, Adam, and thank those folks.
Thank you.
Well, that's okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the bill.
Second by Mr. Heath, motion by Carolyn, second by Mr. Heath, to pay the bill. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Public comment.
Thanks all for your hard work.
Thank you for your hard work.
Well, we